Well, here's a review we've been looking to for more than a year. Actually, it was just about a year ago this week that we had tried to get a V6 Coupe Mustang with a manual to get in for review to see if it was the new 5-liter. In the sense, was it a budget package that pretty much anyone could afford, but you could have fun with it, go fast, and you could customize it a lot. Well, unfortunately that didn't work out. We ended up getting an automatic convertible, and while we had fun, it wasn't what we were looking for. Well, that's all changed now. We have in for review this week here on Rumblestrip.net and 10-minute test drive, a 2013 V6 Mustang. For a while now, we've been wondering if the new, in its current state, V6 Mustang can be the next budget, fun car, muscle car, sports car. It has all the credentials, 300 horsepower, over 300 horsepower, good torque. It's a little bit heavy, but this is a very refined chassis, even though everyone complains about the live axle and how, oh, it's a horror to, anything past 1952. They're basically full of crap, okay? They're basically looking, oh, it doesn't have this, it must have this box checked. Look, the Ford engineers have spent a long time working on this live rear axle, and unless you really know what you're doing, you're not going to be able to tell too much that it's not an independent rear suspension. You got to be with that top 1% of drivers to be able to tell. But that isn't our criteria necessarily of does it have these check boxes, or these boxes, ticked. Our criteria is it affordable? Is it fun to drive? Do you enjoy getting into it and driving it? And is it something that you can live with every day? Well, the answer to almost all those questions is yes. The Mustang, first I guess we should say, if you don't know, if you're new to this channel, we are huge Mustang fans. And I've owned, personally, 3. So we've owned a 83 GT, a 92 LX, and now our 95 GT, which is a project car, which stay tuned to the channel and you'll see more about that here in the near future. So to say that we're fans of Mustangs is very true. That said, we're usually hypercritical of the Mustangs because we expect a lot. We expect big value for money. We want to have a lot of fun, but be able to afford to do it on a car payment that everyone can afford and still have a little bit of money left over to A, afford the insurance, and B, customize it the way that you want. With this V6 Mustang, I think we're really close. Now, our particular model specs out at 31 and change, which is, okay, that's a decent chunk of money. For us, there are 2 options here that would bring this back down right around $26,000 that we would eliminate. Number 1, this beautiful all glass roof. Let's see if we can scan here for just a second here, but I mean, this is one huge piece of glass, and it makes the inside very airy. I can't say it's like having a convertible without having a convertible, but it gives you a bit of that feeling. And it does actually have a big sunshade that comes across that makes a pretty big difference as far as the amount of sun that comes through. Now, this glass is coated, so it's supposed to reflect most of the heat, but when you have that much glass, it's a little bit hard, and, well, it does get a little warm in here at times. And as we're filming this here this week, southeastern Michigan in the middle of June, it's been in the 90s, high 80s, low 90s here for a few days, and it gets a bit toasty in here. Why would we not get this? Well, 2 reasons. Number 1, it's a $2,000 option, and there are things that we'd like to spend $2,000 on that make this would go faster. This doesn't make it go faster, it makes it nicer. But the other thing is, too, it's a big weight penalty. That's a lot of glass replacing metal, so there is a weight penalty for that as well, and for us, weight is everything. The second option that this has that we would get rid of is our car came with an automatic, which is a $1,200 option. We would go with the manual. Why? Well, we prefer driving manuals. Even in daily driving, the manuals are fine. Is the automatic in this good? Sure. 6-speed automatic. Works great. It has a sport function, which definitely does change the strategy in the transmission so that it'll hold gears longer, it won't upshift so soon. Even on the highway, it tends to hold fifth gear more than sixth gear, even going 75 and 80 miles an hour. So you click it into regular drive for that. So those $3,000, $3,200 worth of options we would skip. Definitely would save some money, save you on a payment. It's money that you can use for other things. What this does have is the track pack, though. So it does have the 331 rear. It has the 19-inch wheels. It has the better brakes, and it has the strut tower brace across the across the engine bay between obviously the front struts. Those are two things that we would order. However, we do have to say, 331 rear gear in this thing, it's good. It definitely helps, especially compared to the 273 gear in the convertible that we drove last year. But it needs more gear. It really does. We had a chance to take this out and do some performance testing, which you'll see us talk about here in a moment. And below 50 or 60 miles an hour, an acceleration, well, let's just say it takes a while to get up. And once it gets up to speed, you really feel it starting to haul. So, just to give you a heads up, we did a little quarter-mile testing with it. 1459, 98 miles an hour. For a V6 car that weighs 3,600 pounds and change, that's not bad. Now, that's with an automatic, traction control turned off, hardest launch we could get. We played with it, but that was about the most effective launch, was about 1,800 RPM, bring the engine up to 1,800 RPM, and we went. Multiple times it was all 1359, 13, that'd be nice. 1459, 1460, 1462, all in that ballpark, all around 98 miles an hour, no matter how hard we tried. With a set of 73s or 410 gears, we think this car would go much quicker in the quarter mile. Now, will that have an effect on highway driving? Sure, it'll have a little bit. It'll raise the cruise RPM up about 300 RPM. We'll take that trade-off. Will it have an effect on mileage? Probably. Our highway mileage, this is rated for 31. We saw 28.5, running around the city about 22. So, reasonable mileage. Not fantastic mileage, but, certainly something you can live with day in and day out, and, it's not going to kill you every time you go to fill it up. The question is, do you miss having a V8? Well, sure, of course you have miss having a V8. Yes, you want another 100 plus horsepower. But could you live with the V6? Absolutely. The V6 Mustang is not necessarily the secretary's car anymore. If you know what you're doing, if you're into performance, but you need to be on a bit more of a budget, maybe the where you live or your age group, the insurance costs of going from a V6 to a V8 are a big difference. You can do a lot with this, and certainly all you got to do is open any enthusiast magazine, look at the aftermarket parts available, engine, transmission, suspension, body kits. You can do a lot with these cars. Would we get a V6 Mustang? It would be very, very tempting. I'll be honest with you. Yes, do we want a Boss 302? Do we want a GT 500? Hell, would we like just to have a regular 5-liter? Absolutely. Without doubt, without question. But if we could have one of these things with a manual and work, and work with it to be a project car, our own EcoBoost, whether that's 1 turbo, 2 turbos, supercharger, this could be a lot of fun. And the fact that you don't have 100 extra plus pounds on the front end because it's a V6 versus V8, you could have a lot of fun. If you want to make this more into a autocross, road, track day kind of car, the V6 is definitely a pretty interesting option over the V8. So just some thoughts on that. So let's talk about the interior here for a minute, and we'll circle back and talk about the performance on this car. Interior in this car, it's pretty good. Hard plastic, sure. It's not a $40,000 car. Do most people care? Not really. But the interior is a nice place to be. You have plenty of room, shoulder room, hip room. It's quiet. It really is quiet in here. Going down the highway, very little road noise gets through. It's pretty enjoyable to drive. Going over our bomb craters that we have here for roads in southeast Michigan, it soaks it up pretty well. Really no complaints about that. We do have one complaint about the interior though, and this is a design thing, and maybe it's us, maybe it's the way that, you know, our driving style or driving posture is, but it revolves around the center console. So in the center console here, you have your cup holder, which can be lit up. We'll get a little interior. See, it's lit up for red. And then behind it, you have another cubby, which is where you hook up for your iPod and such. And of course, it's more storage. The problem is, and this will be a bit difficult to demonstrate, but as you rest your arm, if you're driving, especially with an automatic, you tend to hit this a lot, and you find that this swings up. Maybe it's us, maybe our elbow just tends to ride right, apologies for that, but right here a lot, and it just naturally just triggers that, and we've had it pop open on more than one occasion. So really our only issue with the interior here. Back seat, well, it's there. Can you put someone back there? Oh yeah, for a short distance. But you know, this is a 2+2, not a 4-seater. This is meant for someone who likes to, you know, cruise by themselves or with one other person. It's fun. Let's show you. This car also has the track apps, and we'll see if we can circle through that with you here real quick. Don't want to bore you with a ton of details, but some of you will be interested. We have you can look at your air-fuel ratio, cylinder head temperature, inlet pressure. You know, quite a bit in there. So we want to go to track apps, and it has, you can do accelerometer for brakes and that. Of course, your timer, you can do 0 to 60, 0 to 100. You can do 0 to 30, 60, 100, eighth and quarter mile. Brake performance, which we didn't have a chance to do. And of course, you can look at all your results. So, kind of fun. More settings, more information, obviously. You can definitely have some fun with this. And, well, we've been sitting here idling for a while, so that's why our fuel economy is down about there. As we said, we did have a chance to take this car out to Mile and Dragway and run it to see how good it does. And as we said, it went 1459 at 98 miles an hour for best ET, and we had several runs at 1460, 1462. I want to put that to you in perspective. Back in the mid-90s, I had a 92 5-liter LX 5-speed, and it had 323 gears when I bought it. I put a set of 373s in it, and just that plus a set of slicks, it went 1419. And I did a few other things, better exhaust system and rocker arms and a few other things. There were just some minor bolt-on stuff. Ended up going like 1319 at 103 and change, I think. It's been a long time since I've had that car, but that seems to be about right. So the reason I bring all that up is I wanted to put this into perspective for you. Now, 20 years ago was a long time, or 18 years ago was a long time. But this car, as it sits, is just as fast as a 5-liter Mustang from back in the late 80s and early 90s. That's pretty spectacular, to be perfectly honest. That's actually shockingly good. And as we said, this car would be very, very easy to make it go a little bit faster. In fact, I'm talking to someone at the track. They said, just because we're assuming this has it had 87 gas, because we took it the same day it was delivered. We were assuming it had 87 octane gas. We're told by just going to 92 octane or 93 octane gas that you can drop quite a bit off because the computer will take a much more aggressive strategy with that. From a performance standpoint, if you're into drag racing and all that, a better exhaust system, a set of shorty headers, a freer flowing catback system, clean up the intake system a little bit, definitely a set of gears, and this car will fly, let alone putting on some kind of turbo or supercharger. So to wrap this thing up, because we're going a lot longer than we expected to talking about it, but that's how much we like this car. Granted, as we said, we're fans of Mustangs. We like Mustangs, otherwise we wouldn't own 3 of them. But I like this a whole lot more than I expected to. I mean, I kind of expected to like it. I've been looking forward to it, anticipating this thing for a year, and it's definitely lived up to what I had hoped for. If it was us, would we change it? Would we have a manual? Would we do things a little bit differently? Yes. But even as it sits right now, this car is a ton of fun to drive, and it's something that I'd spend my own money on.